He wasn't who he said he was. I was 18, trolling Meet Me, looking for some form of validation, and to my shock, I get a message from Jay. A little backstory information. I went to church with Jay when I was 13 years old. I always thought he was really cute, but he was significantly older than me. He was my best friend's older brother's best friend, so he always looked at us like we were kids. We only talked a handful of times. He left the church when I was 15, and I hadn't seen him since. Well, hello there. Hey Jay, what's up? Just talking to a cute girl, what's up with you? And then it started. I was young, insecure, and slightly desperate at the time, and the idea of this amazing hot boy, who I looked up to as a kid, giving me that type of attention was incredibly exciting for me. You're pretty cute yourself. I've always thought so. We chatted and flirting turned into dirty talk. By this point, it had been several hours of messaging, and it was 2 a.m. in the morning. He asked to come over to my house, but I lived with my parents at the time, so I declined. He then told me to give him my address anyways, and he would pick me up. But I had work in the morning, so I said no. He tried to convince me, but he finally accepted the answer. Over the next couple weeks, we messaged every day. We planned on meeting up multiple times, but for some reason it never worked out for either of us. I told my friends that Jay from the youth group was expressing interest in me. They were excited, but told me to be careful. Jay was kind of a player. Knowing this information, I was a little hesitant to meet up with him, but I enjoyed messaging him, even though he would sometimes get upset when I told him I couldn't meet up. He got more and more persistent, so I stopped messaging him. I didn't feel right about it. Then one Saturday, I went to a wedding with my best friend as her plus one, and who would be the best man but Jay. I was excited to see him, but he acted very distant and uninterested, ignoring me like he did back in the day at church. I was sad about it, but quickly moved on to spend time with my friends. That Monday, Jay messages me again and we chat for a while. I finally decide to bring up the wedding. You look pretty hot on Saturday. You saw me on Saturday? This was strange. We had talked, only for a few minutes, but he definitely knew who I was. Yeah, of course I did. Oh, you were at that party too? What are you talking about? Yeah, I was so fucked up. You're not Jay, are you? Of course I am. What are you talking about? I realized then it wasn't Jay. In all our conversations about the past, he had never brought up specific events or people. He just knew that Jay and I once knew each other. I had to be sure, so I asked him a question only Jay would know. At this wedding, the entire wedding party wore gray Toms, so I asked him, what shoes were you wearing on Saturday? My Vans. It wasn't him. Jay wasn't interested in me after all, but I wasn't sad. I was just scared. Who was this fake Jay? You're not Jay. I don't know who you are, but you're not him. Come on, of course I am. Jay did not wear Vans on Saturday. Who are you? Shit, fine, I'm not Jay. Who are you? Haha, not telling. The conversation went on a little longer, and I kept getting more and more freaked out. Why are you doing this? Because you're a fucking bitch. What the hell, who are you? It was too easy. I'm gonna call the police. They can't fucking do anything. Who are you? Hope you get raped to death, cunt. He deleted his account after that. He was gone, and I was terrified. At the time, I didn't do anything. I didn't even tell my parents, and I've never found out who fake Jay was, but whoever you are, let's not meet. The Creepy Storyteller. I've been role-playing since high school, and throughout the years, I've met a number of people who creep me out, but I was always able to shrug it off and enjoy the game. That is until I met Patrick. Patrick was the head storyteller in a massive campaign which involved around a dozen troops in 2 cities. I met him through George, an acquaintance from my local gaming club. I liked what he had set up and asked him if I could join. Patrick requested to see me in private. We sat down, and not even 2 minutes into the conversation, he began flirting with me. Politely, I told him I had a boyfriend. He laughed it off, said, "We can't blame a lad for trying," and we had a nice chat without any more shenanigans from his part. I eventually joined the game and saw him regularly, but he was always polite and reserved, to the point I even started to like him. Cut to 2 months later, in our weekly gaming night, we were about to begin a tabletop session with George, a storyteller. Right before we started, I received a text from Patrick. It said, "Tonight, fantasy and reality will become one. I reckon something exciting was in store for us, game-wise," and texted him back, "Can't wait." We started playing, all in good spirits, but for some reason George looked nervous. We noticed and asked, him whether something was wrong. He said everything was okay and that he just had a headache, and we really didn't press the issue. At some points, our characters tried to sneak into a building but got caught, and then out of the blue, George, visibly upset by then, started to describe in excruciating detail how our captors brutally gang raped my characters. I tried to laugh it off and said, "Okay, George, I get it, moving on now," but he kept going until I couldn't take it anymore and told him in no uncertain terms that I wasn't feeling comfortable with this and that he had to stop. We wrapped up the session soon after that. Before I left, George took me aside and apologized. "I should have said no," he said. "I didn't understand," and he explained, "Patrick made me do it. He gave me all the details, made me write them down and then read them back to him to make sure I got everything right. He also told me to record the session and send it to him later." And then I remembered the text I received earlier and felt sick. George erased the recording he'd made and apologized profusely, saying that he was afraid he'd get kicked out of the game if he didn't do what Patrick said. But in the end, he felt so bad that it wasn't worth it. I wasn't mad at George, whom I knew to be a sweet kid. He was painfully shy and had no friends outside our gaming circle, so I could see how Patrick could have manipulated him to do this. I told him to tell Patrick to stay the hell away from me, or I call the police. I advised George to do the same. I quit the game and avoided the shit out of Patrick and the places he frequented. I breathed a sigh of relief when he moved away. I recently heard through the grapevine that someone sued him for harassment. I wonder why. Things get a little heated. A few years ago, when I was 16 years old, I worked at a tanning salon part-time during high school. It was mostly women who would come in, but we had many male customers as well. After a couple months of working there, a cute older guy came in. According to his account, he was a regular, but hadn't been in a while. All of his information popped up on the screen when he gave his name, address, phone number, age, etc. He came in, did his business, then left. I only worked maybe twice a week, but he would always come in when I was working. I should also mention that there were only 3 employees and the manager, all of us women, and we would work our shifts alone. Now, this guy was really hot, but his account said he was 36. After a couple of times of seeing him, he started to make conversation with me, usually complimenting my smile or eyes. He even noticed when I got a haircut one day, and that just made me feel like a little girl being told her crush likes her. I thought it was fine, him flirting with me. Because come on, guys will be guys no matter how old. That is until he started making advances towards me. First, he asked if I wanted to go to dinner with him one night, but I told him no, that I had a boyfriend, and that I was too young for him. He didn't realize I had all his information in front of me, and I lied about its age, which I called him out on. That didn't stop him though. One day he came in, but there was a long line of people and more came in after him, so he stood back and waited until everyone was in the back and we were alone. That's when he started flirting again, and asked if we could get into the tanning booth together. I giggled a little. I was 16, and a hot older guy was hitting on me and wanted me, but said no. I still have that boyfriend, and plus, him being older makes it illegal. He laughs it off and went in the back, and then left when he was done. A couple days later, he came in at the start of my shift while the manager was still there. She was behind the desk with me, but on the phone, so wasn't paying attention at all. He came behind the counter, got really close to me, and whispered in my ear that if I came in the back with him, he would give me the time of my life. I immediately said no, and that he needs to back off, and that was the manager standing right behind me. I think that was the last time I saw him. Honestly, if I was a slut, I probably would have taken him up on his offer, because he was the most beautiful guy I've ever met, but the fact that he knew how young I was and yet still pursued me really put me off. After he came behind the counter and invaded my personal space, I became scared working by myself because I had no idea what he would try if he came back again. I've had a lot of creepers come in, but none as forward as him. I won't be letting someone borrow my hat again. Okay, this happened when I was about 13 or 14. Me and my best friend were bored at her place. We've been playing video games and whatnot for a while, and decided to invite 2 of our guy friends over because they live nearby. After about 10 minutes, they texted my friend and said they were outside, so we wouldn't make too much noise inside the house and wake up her mom. We went outside and hung out there. It was pretty late, about 1:30 to 2 a.m. There wasn't anybody out because it was a semi-suburban area, and there were lots of bars and pubs at the beachfront, but most of them closed at 12. Anyways, we had been hanging out for a while, talking and stuff, when two Austrian men came up to us and started making small talk. I can't really remember much of what they were saying, but it seemed friendly enough. I was wearing a hat. I don't know, it was cool back then wearing a hat in the middle of the night, and then grabbed it out of my head. "Nice hat, can I wear it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, if you let me wear yours." He passed me his, and they were sort of joking around with me. I was way too young, but it may have seemed like I was flirting, even though these men were in their late 30s and I had only just hit puberty. But because I was the one interacting the most, since my other friends were shy, and the guys we were hanging with had no interest in small talk. Anyways, I don't remember exactly, but they started asking weird questions. I can't quite remember, but yeah, they said, "We'll get you alcohol and come back," even though we never asked about alcohol. I said, "Yeah, sure, why not? Why would they even bother leaving and coming back anyways?" The closest bottle shop was like a 20-minute walk away. This seemed weird, but I didn't think that they were all that serious anyways. Once they had gone, we all started talking again. "That was weird," I said, but then changing the subject. No more than 45 minutes later, a brown panel van stops in front of my friend's house. It was the two guys. I thought they must have been driving in this direction and were saying hello again, I don't know. But then they yell out, "We got you some alcohol." This is when I started feeling off. But still, my confident, cheery self, I say to him, "Oh really?" They said, "Yeah, if you want the alcohol, come up to the car and get it." This is when I realized something not so nice is happening. I look at my friend and ask her with my eyes, "Should I go?" And she looks back like, "Fuck no." I then push one of our guy friends in forward and say, "You go." He looks at me and says, "I'm not going." I then muster the courage, thinking if they were planning something, they would do this. "If you want to give us alcohol, pull over and bring it here," in a stern yet still nice voice. They look at each other and don't say anything, and start driving. We think for a second, phew, they must have been leaving, but then they were pulling up on a driveway about a house down that we couldn't see because it was obstructed by a tree. This is when my shy friend yells, "They're pulling over, oh my god, why'd you say that?" I say, "I don't know." She says to all of us, "Quick, run inside, quick, quick, quick." We all run inside, and she says, "Turn all the lights off." That's exactly what we did. We then all ducked down and hid in a pile of pillows me and my friend set up earlier to play video games. We were looking out her side that looks out onto the walkway from the front of the house to our backyard, and we noticed them looking through the windows and going on her front porch and trying to see if we were still there. After a while, they couldn't see us, and they left. It was so terrifying. I still don't know why they wanted to give us alcohol so badly, but yeah. I made a terrible mistake. This is a long one, so be prepared. There's a lot of backstory to fully understand how the story got to where it was. This was 2 years ago, but the ordeal lasted over a year, and hopefully it finally ended. I just started university when I met him. His name was Ricky. Actually, it was the second day I was there. We both lived on campus in the same building on the same floor. We were on the elevator, and Ricky started talking to me. I didn't mind, since he was friendly enough and he was the first person I had met other than my roommates. Eager to make friends, we decided to hang out later in that day. My campus had a beach that many of the students would go to, and decided to go there. We flirted a bunch and I was getting pretty comfortable with him. Later on, he wanted to go back to his room to smoke and invited me to come with him, figuring this could be a possible time to get a little more than just flirting in. I again agreed to his offer. We went back to his room and ended up doing more than just kissing. After that, Ricky and I would hang out often, since it was pretty easy with him just down the hall. It wouldn't always just be me and him, his friends were there too. The other friends that I had made didn't like Ricky all that much, which should have been my first clue that there was something wrong, but I liked being around him, and he was nice to me and his friends. Over the next couple weeks, I started to develop feelings for Ricky, but it just didn't seem right, and I didn't think we'd just be more than friends. One night of drinking, I ended up kissing one of his friends, nothing more than a little kiss. He stopped and went to go talk to Ricky. The guy came back and told me not to mention the kiss to anyone. At the time, I wasn't told what they talked about, but I later found out that his friend asked him if me and Ricky were together and he said yes. Now, I was a little off-put by this, but also a little excited. Being a girl of subpar attractiveness, I like the feeling of someone wanting to be in a relationship with me. Me and Ricky discussed it and we started dating. We got into a big fight, and not long after that, over I don't remember what, and he ended up kissing another girl from our floor. This is another time I should have left, but I really had true feelings and thought that it wouldn't happen again. This is when it started to get really bad. Ricky began dealing pot around this time. It didn't bother me, but it became important later on. He began to get controlling with me, never letting me even touch his phone, guilting me into staying in his room, never mind, lying to me about many things, telling me he loved me even when it wasn't true. This went on for about 2 months. When it just came Christmas break, I decided to end it. It was hard because I truly felt like I loved him, but I would do everything for him only to get yelled at for nothing. He blamed me for everything that went wrong in his life and would always tell me that his friends hated me, therefore they hated him. After we broke up, he'd always try to sleep with me, and me being dumb, because I thought I could truly get him to love me back. Until Valentine's Day came, I invited him over to hang out, since we were the only ones on campus during spring break and I was bored. This caused a huge fight that involved him breaking into my room to steal something valuable to me. The whole night, he would constantly text, telling me that he was going to make sure I was miserable, and that he was never going to leave me alone. I received over 50 plus text messages from him. The next morning it didn't stop, and I was scared, so I contacted campus security, and they told me that I could have pressed charges. I didn't, mainly because I just wanted it to stop, and I didn't want anyone to be mad at me because of it. The campus security ended up writing it up and put in place that neither of us were able to have contact with each other. If he did or I did, campus security would be notified, and further action would be taken place. This worked for a while. Fast forward to the almost end of the semester, through a mutual friend, it was told that I wouldn't care if he decided he wanted to talk to me again. We had many mutual friends, and I didn't want to be like a choice between us two, you know? He found this out and began talking to me again. He seemed to understand that what he did was not okay at all, and he apologized for everything, saying that he was better now. Again, I believed him. I really wanted to believe it, not only because I loved him, but because after our fight on Valentine's Day, he apparently went on a downhill spiral. We talked every once in a while, but once school was over and I had to leave, it was supposed to be the end, or so I thought. When I was moving out, I didn't have enough room in my parents' car, and I knew Ricky's roommate Jonas was staying long enough on campus that I could leave it there and pick it up later. Me and Jonas ended up hanging out, and we had such a great time before he left, and we ended up dating. Now, this is when shit truly hit the fan. Ricky would constantly text me, telling me that he was so upset that I would do this to him, that I left him for his friend. He told me that he loved me, and that he wanted to have children with me, and that I was his soulmate. At the same time, he would be texting my boyfriend that he was glad that Jonas was with me, and that he wished I was happy. During this time, Ricky began to deteriorate fast. He was smoking and dealing pot so much that he was getting so paranoid. He had no friends because he treated everyone like shit. I believe that he truly felt that if he didn't have me, he would have been lost. After the messages that Ricky was sending me got more and more threatening, and I didn't even want to bother with him, I decided to delete and block his number, as well as block him on Facebook as well. After that, he created another Facebook account and tried talking to me as well. I told him to leave me alone. I blocked him. He created yet another account trying to talk to me. I told him to leave me alone, that I didn't want anything to do with him. I was happy with Jonas. I blocked his number as well. He made one last one and tried talking to me, and I told him I would go to the police if he messaged me again. I blocked it. I was scared at this point though. He knew where I lived and told me he was gonna break into my apartment and do many things to me that were not pleasant. Jonas, being an ex-friend of his, didn't think that he would harm me. With school coming up, I was scared that he would try something. Jonas no longer went there, so I didn't have someone to make sure that I would be okay. Through the semester, I would see him at school at our campus, as our campus was small, and I was there every day. He would stare at me while I tried to avoid him at all costs. Every time he would see me, he would message Jonas to try and cause a fight, usually bringing me into the conversation. Jonas didn't care about the fight and just laughed it off. I didn't like that Ricky was messaging Jonas, but I was happy he didn't message me anymore. During the Christmas break, on Christmas Eve of all days, I received another message from him over Facebook. My heart dropped as I read his name. I opened the message, and he told me how much he misses me, and that he hopes I'm happy, and that he wishes that we could be together again, and together forever. He tries to guilt me by telling me that he had been diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. I told him that he was pathetic to keep doing this. Why would you create 4 accounts to talk to someone who didn't want to talk to you anymore? He messaged me back the next day, Merry Christmas. I didn't hear from him after that at all. It made me worried because neither me nor Jonas heard from him, but I was hoping that it was the last time. Nope. Ricky messaged Jonas again about 3 months later, asking for my number so that he could message me about giving me fish. Jonas told him that no, he didn't feel comfortable with that. Again, 2 weeks later, the same message, response the same. The final message either of us received was the day before I moved to transfer school, was can I have her number so that I could get the fish tank back. Jonas told him that I no longer lived in the city and that I didn't have it. It's been about 7 months since I've heard from him, happy that he's finally gone. I'm currently living with Jonas in a different city, going to a different school. And Ricky has no idea where I am. I've heard stories about him from many people, that he is constantly trying to sleep with girls that doesn't have anything to do with him, falling out of school, and doing and dealing cocaine. I made a terrible mistake talking to him in that elevator that one day. So Ricky, let's not ever meet again. Fixated customer won't leave me alone. I'm hoping to share the story and alleviate some stress and anxiety. It's what's causing me over the past month of this. I get weird people flirting with me or being creepy at work all the time, but this guy takes the cake. Here goes nothing. So this story happened at my workplace. I work in the cosmetic department of a pharmacy. To give you an idea of the layout, there is a high-end area at the entrance of the store, and the rest of the pharmacy just beyond our section. The first encounter, recently, a guy came into the department, and I gave him the standard, "Hi there, can I help you find anything?" To which he stared at me and made some type of noise, sort of a grunt. Now, the guy was Asian, and in my area, there's lots of new immigrants, so I figured maybe he just didn't speak English. I told him to let me know if he had any questions, and continue on to other clients, while keeping my eye on him for loss prevention. To go on with this story, I have to explain the layout of the cash area. When you first walk inside, you see the cash desk, and behind that desk is a sort of half-wall divider that stands about 5'10" high, but this divider juts out from the floor and does not exactly attach to the wall of windows running alongside the cash. Got it? Good. So I help everyone out, and I'm standing at the cash. I look at the window because I have nothing better to do, and in my peripheral vision, see this guy just standing at the gap between the window and the divider. This is not a place clients regularly find themselves in, and it's sort of a small area to just stand in. He's staring at me emotionless, and when I turn towards him, he hides. So he clearly knows he is doing something strange and worth hiding. At this point, I sort of pretend I don't see him, and walk away from cash to lure him away. He moves away from the section, and acts like he's simply looking at the products. He then leaves the department, goes to various aisles, and returns to look at different sections, all the while peeking up at me. We play this game of cat and mouse for a while, and finally I've had enough. At this point, I wasn't so much creeped out by him than annoyed that I just watched him constantly because of his odd behavior. I called the manager on duty and told her he was making me uncomfortable, and she insisted he was probably just killing time, waiting for a prescription. I went on break about 20 minutes later, with the guy having hidden behind me in that spot between the divider and the windows at least one more time. As pointed out by a coworker walking by, I warned the cashier about the guy, so she wouldn't freak out if she happened to see him standing there, and just to keep an eye out for him. On my way back from getting my lunch, he walked past me in the opposite direction. I avoided eye contact and rushed back to work. When I finished my lunch, my cover told me that he had entered the department again, looking around and then probably left the store. Knowing what I know now, he never purchased anything in the store and was in the store for over an hour. He then left when I left, and then, while I was in the lunchroom, walked past the store multiple times, peering into the windows like he was looking for something. Some of the coworkers that saw him will say that he looks like he has some kind of developmental delay or some sort because of his actions, and that he was totally nonverbal. I hope this would be the last I would see of him, but I was wrong. The second encounter was a little bit less exciting, but this one stood out for a few reasons. This time, I was working with my department manager who knew the story. She was in the back when he first came in, and I was working on some task. One of my jobs is to greet clients when they come inside, so I was looking down but saw someone enter the store and said, "Hello." I look up from my work to see him turn around and recognize me. I swear it was like the Terminator acquiring his target, you know? He zeroed in on me, which is still the only resemblance of emotion I've seen him have. He moved into the rest of the store, but I could see him hovering at the end of an aisle. I moved to the far end of the department, where I called my manager to come out immediately. Now my manager is a sassy woman who doesn't take shit from anyone. I pointed him out. He was heading away to hide, and she went up to him and asked him if she could help him. Again, he didn't speak and tried to move away from her, but then kept watching as I ignored him and kept working. For about 10 minutes, she was on him as he left and returned from the department. His persistence is probably the creepiest bit. Eventually, he left the store, and my best guess is because he was not able to watch me in peace. The assumption that he was developmentally delayed continued with new people have seen him. But everyone agreed he knew he was doing something wrong. The third encounter, so this one really happened on Saturday, and was probably the most frightening bit. I was at the cash serving someone, and they mentioned what lovely weather we were having. As they left, I kept looking outside, only to see him hiding behind a pillar on the other side of the window. I immediately called the manager Monica from the first incident, and she came running up, along with 2 other supervisors. Monica sized him up from inside the store, staring right back at him. He ignored her and kept staring at me. She pretended she was on the phone, pointing at him and hoping he would be scared as she was calling the cops. He walked away, and then within a minute was back, as though nothing happened, still avoiding them, blocking his view of me while I helped my clients. The rest of the story I heard from my other coworkers as I was serving clients. My coworkers said that Monica got fed up and went outside, telling him that if he didn't move along, she would call the cops. He stared at her without emotion, did not even say a word, turned around and walked off to his car. Everyone was in shock that he was able to drive. Now, I don't want to be an asshole. I am aware people with many developmental issues can drive, but everyone was convinced this guy was at a level where he would not normally be able to get a license anyways, given his lack of emotion and communication skills and ability to take social cues. This further made him intimidating because he was no longer on foot and was able to drive. It seemed as though he had driven all the way there just to watch me. Monica said that he was so emotionless, he freaked even her out. She believes that he is fully aware of what he was doing, and even possibly pretending to have some disability to appear more innocent. So there's my story. Here's hoping he doesn't ever come back.